This podcast is for the sales professionals at every level. If you want to convert more prospects into paying customers, then you're in the right place. Because Joe has spent the last 3 decades mastering buying behaviors, personality types, emotional and logical triggers. This is the Sales Genius Podcast. It's only a numbers game if you want educated. It's time to get educated. Let's go. Educated. Wanna learn how to close deals. Wanna learn how to sell more. That's what we're here for at Sales Genius. Let's go.
Hi guys, welcome to the Sales Genius Podcast. I am your host, Joe Ingram. Today we are joined by a truly remarkable individual, Luke Lunkenheimer, founder of Paid to Persuade. Luke's journey has been anything but conventional, from battling addiction and facing incarceration to becoming a multi-million-dollar entrepreneur and innovative sales trainer. So what better platform than Sales Genius for Luke to be here? So his approach to sales emphasizes authenticity and empathy. I've always told you, when you can fake the authenticity, the world is yours. Challenging the traditional sales tactics that often make people feel like they have been manipulated. In this episode, he'll share his philosophy of building genuine connections with clients and how to sell from a place of integrity. So get ready for a powerful conversation on how you can transform your sales career and your life by embracing authenticity and emotional intelligence. First off, let's go ahead and grab some VIPs and bring them up on the screen. We got, as always, Brian Galkey. We're joined by Anthony Azerdi as well. Serhadi is here with us. Tyler Preston. Tyler, the man on the go. And we have Luke Lunkenheimer. Luke, welcome. Now, I am going to throw up a little banner across the bottom, because if you need anything, go to lukelunk.com. It's a picture of him standing there nice. We can get to his podcast. Guys, come on.
Joe, all due respect, that's going to be probably on my PR people. It is paidtopersuade.com.
Oh, well, then forget those people. We saw nothing. For those of you listening, there was nothing on this.
It was just a pattern interrupt.
There you go. See, perfect lesson of the day. I love it.
Fantastic. Luke, I do have a couple questions, even though, as you've noted before, it's not the interview style. I want to give the floor to you to train and share your style with us. But so your actual methodology is built on confidence, content, and cadence.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Can you walk us through how these principles can transform a sales professional approach to their client, with sales professionals on screen and listening?
I'd be happy to, brother. What it boils down to is, and really just to take a step back, I own car dealerships, been in the car business kind of my whole life, had a lot of a breadth of experience in a lot of different sales avenues, came back to the car business. And in owning the car dealerships, I realized over time I was a par car dealer. I was pretty decent at inventory acquisition, marketing, all that stuff. What came to be the recurring theme was that everybody that would visit my stores, or anybody with any business acumen or experience in sales, would just marvel at how strong the salespeople were. So I learned over time that was my skill. Was not that I was a good car dealer. I was a terrific sales trainer. And I say that with all humility, but the results started to speak for themselves. The 3C framework was basically, I understood that moving into the marketplace and wanting to become a sales trainer, to wear that badge and go out in the marketplace and do that, I had to somehow, productize or create a moniker, or just I had to have something to go to the marketplace and say, well, this is me. This is what differentiates us. And the 3C framework pretty much, it's not a framework, excuse me, the 3 C's came from understanding that I was going to have to explain to business owners why what we did was so effective. So I kind of just sat down one day and said, okay, well, what does everybody else do? And this is for the vast majority. I'm not speaking to everybody, but for the vast majority, they teach salespeople how to be talkers, how to say the right things, phrases, scripts, and not just scripts and word tracks, but ultimately, I feel like the goal of the average trainer is to go in and train the person on what to say. And if they say that, you say this. And as you're qualifying, make sure you say these things. And when they say they need to talk to their wife, make sure you say this thing. And don't say these words. These words will trigger sales resistance. And make sure you say these words. These words will trigger your customer to progress the sale. And I thought about it, and I'm like, I don't really teach anybody to say anything. I teach them what to mine, what to cultivate. I teach them the answers that they need, but I don't tell them how to say it, because if I tell people how to say things, it's gonna sound like I want them to sound and how they would coming from me. And quite frankly, the majority of my sales staff at that time, they were not much like me at all. Okay, go figure. I know it's probably hard to believe, but you know,
they weren't
ex-felons.
You know that. Yeah, we all have that problem.
So I said, you know what it really boils down to is I train mindset in sales to optimize for confidence. If my guys, the people that I train, are just unapologetically and ruthlessly confident, they can transfer certainty to the buyer, which is ultimately what we need to do. We need to convey to the buyer that, listen, I'm certain this is your solution, but I need you to be certain. And we do that by making sure that the customer, that what we frame to bring to the customer is all their own thoughts and words. Whether I have a cute, slick saying to give to them is immaterial, because if it doesn't resonate with them and we don't know before we deliver it that it's going to resonate with them, then it's a waste of time. So that's the confidence portion of the framework. And then I said, okay, well, if we're not teaching scripts and rebuttals, and I really truly got to the point, I was going out to visit with a mutual friend. We spoke about Brad Lee, and I was like, well, what am I going to tell him? What do I actually train? And this was at the outset when I was creating the framework of my training. And I said, well, you know, it's ultimately a framework. And that framework is used, the word rather is used, sometimes abused, sometimes misused. But I think at its core, it is correct that most things that are effective when deployed to a human to go execute are in a framework style. You know, you got to start here, move to here. If you do, and with us, it's kind of a one-way street. You know, we teach it that you start here and this is what you must solve for. Once you solve for this, you can move to here. But if you don't solve for this, you can't move to, you have to stay here until you solve for these things, and then you move to here. Because if you move prematurely, you'll have a disconnect at the end, and that disconnect ultimately manifests itself in leaving way for objections, for someone to object for some reason or another. And solving objections at the end of the sale is what we try not to do. That's the antithesis of what we're trying to do, right? And it aligns with a lot of what you teach. So content is the word that I came up with to be the framework. I couldn't say framework, confidence, cadence. So if there's one word in that acronym that may not be as perfect as I'd like it to be, it's the word content. But most people in the world of social media know content is data. It's in our particular what we do, it's a framework. Okay. Confidence is the confidence piece. And then the third C is the most important, by far, bar none, cadence. The cadence and the rhythm of the training and the growth in perpetuity. We know, most of us know that 90%, plus or minus a few percentage points, depending on the poll or the data source, 90% of all sales training is lost after day 90. Once the sales trainer disengages, once the book has done being read, once the show is over, everybody kind of just peters off until about day 90. They retain about 10% of what they had. And what I would explain to business owners as they would consider engaging with Paid to Persuade is, we're going to take that burden from you. We're going to make sure that in perpetuity, forever, for as long as you choose to do business with us, we are going to be on weekly calls, interactive calls. You know, a lot of other guys are, they're going to be in our system. They're going to be in our online school. They're going to be in our online platform. They got to take these modules at this cadence and these modules at this cadence. The most important thing for us is we're with you, myself personally, on these calls every week, training with your team. So content is what they receive, and that's how they execute. Confidence is what we optimize for the salesperson, not words. And cadence is the rhythm at which we execute in perpetuity moving forward. And that is for us solved sales training.
Fantastic. Okay. So I'm going to throw, and you guys, again, feel free to ask Luke any questions, but I will dominate it just because my name's on the show. But here's one thing I want to ask you. So, like, I had a trainer that came out last week to train my people. Very good looking gentleman at the bottom of the screen, drinking his Red Bull. So I had Brian come out, teach everybody the facial analysis, going into body language and statement analysis with people. And it was funny because in the class, because I make sure everybody knows the script and the goal of what we're trying to do. And then I've told everybody, look, if you pick up the phone and you get an appointment, I don't really care what happened, right? But if you pick up the phone and suck, right, then that's when you have to make sure the script is word for word and going through, because I have to control the expense of my opportunities to closing. And then the trainer dude stands up in the front and goes, yeah, I'm not big on scripts. We don't have to do it. And after he went through everything, teaching them how to look at someone's face and analyze them and to do all this, they walk out and go, you heard, right? We don't have to do scripts anymore because this person said this. And I was like,
the one takeaway.
I'm like, so they lost 90%, which means I have to wait 90 more days and they'll forget that part too. But as we look at what we're going through and everything else, I look at it, Brian, always in a class, always learning something. I'm always learning something. I have to believe you are always out there learning something else. So in the last 3 years, what is one thing that you learned in sales or how to go through something that shook you and you had to go, man, I got to rethink this stuff. I got to go back through.
That's a great question, brother. And I actually talked about it today. So I'm so glad you said it, because the Band-Aid was ripped off fresh today and it's right top of mind. And I will say this, and you'll probably pause for a moment and say, but at Costco, you can buy a steak, eat the steak, consume the entire thing, bring back the styrofoam tray and the saran wrap with no receipt and say, I didn't like that steak, and you'll receive a refund. And there's the moment. What's he talking about? Consumer sentiment has changed so much post-COVID. We used to say, well, we're in a buyer's market. You know, there's more supply than there is demand. It's a buyer's market. We are in the buyer's market of all history. Businesses at scale are telling customers, hey, you want to cancel? That's cool. You want to commit and then backpedal? That's cool. You want to consume the product or service and not pay for it? That's cool. And it's manifesting itself in sales teams as salespeople getting very upset and very beat up that I did my job. I committed my customer. You know, I train a large roofing company out of the southern part of the United States. They operate in 3 states and they got 16 guys on the road. These guys are, any one of you guys would hire these guys in a moment. They're strong, okay? But they're beat up, man. They're fatigued because they're like, how did we go from a 15% cancellation ratio to a 26% cancellation ratio? Luke comes out, we run a hotel, we do a training, we get down to a 6% cancellation ratio, and then all of a sudden 6 months removed, we're working back up into that mid-teen. Like, how does it keep regressing back and forth or back to the original higher number? And I had to explain to these guys, like, this isn't the way it was a decade ago. A lot of these guys are veteran guys, right? The consumer has changed. Not only are they told it's okay to do these things, they're encouraged by these larger companies. Hey, listen, we want you happy. So if anything doesn't feel right about it, just give it back. And then they work in these tolerable losses, these negligible losses into their business structure. And the average business that most of the salespeople that I would believe that we train or are involved in training or work with are not in this large scale corporate structure, giant economy. They're dealing with private businesses and they're selling for private businesses. So I believe at scale, that change in consumer sentiment and behavior of the giant corporation towards the buyer has significantly affected the mindset and the demeanor of salespeople at scale.
Fantastic. I'll follow up with the most obvious question that Brian's thinking about, but is, okay, how do you overcome that?
Yeah.
How did you take somebody? I don't want you to sell all the secret sauce, right? But how do you get us?
I'll give it all away, brother.
We're in the 26%, and now all of a sudden, you get us down into the 6 or 7. But there had to be something, and I know part of it's going to be like you said before. You teach the mindset, but how do I get the customer into that right mindset? Because I got to deprogram, right, to get the customer in the right frame of mind. Yeah.
100%. So, I'll pay some homage to Joe. I asked ChatGPT a little while ago. I said, I know a little about Joe Ingram, but give me a lot. Give me the meat and potatoes. And one of the things it talked about was your affinity for exit interviews and, getting the cancellation rate down using an exit interview. And one of the things I've found, which is why I try to tread very lightly when I critique anybody else in sales, is, and this is the God's honest truth. There's so much that I train and I teach that I developed on my own, but I later discovered in reading and cultivating more knowledge in my own brain, man, someone's already done this. I better be careful what I say when I say it's mine. It's really not mine. And just to kind of piggyback off of that, I think that all good sales trainers, there's a basic core of that training that just comes in understanding human beings and then building off from there. And then, you market your frameworks and so on and so forth. But, the simple answer is the way I got there, and this is kind of counterintuitive, but the way I got these guys to reduce that cancellation ratio so quickly and effectively was with a script, okay, and with an exit interview. Meaning I gave them the script and said, read through this, and then most importantly, make it your own. And when I give the script, I give bullet points. This is what I would say. These are the things you've got to cover. And then I compel them to go create your way of saying it. And then I'll role play it with them and I'll make minor adjustments. So that way their prefrontal cortex has to pivot and has to give something new. But I just make sure that those core beliefs, those fundamentals are there. Now, to kind of expand on that, brother, it's really quite simple. You got to have courage and you got to be willing to push back and you have to be accountable. What I find with salespeople is that so many guys out there, there's all this water cooler cancer of, I did my job. My job's to get the customer and to close. I did my job. Production couldn't get this done. We had to push off their this. We had to do their that. And, I did my job. Changing that thinking to until that product delivers, that is your responsibility. Okay. Different sales team. Having a similar problem. I said to them, okay, well, how long is the delay between the time that you get the deposit and you close the deal and when the product is installed in the consumer's home? 5 to 7 days. I said, okay. And who's the individual that gives them the updates about when the project will be complete? Our project manager. Okay. How many of those do you have? 1. Well, how many of there are you? 16. How many of these products do you sell and deliver in a week? 4 to 5. 5 times 16 is like 80. 16 different guys. One guy, 80 phone calls, average of 5 minutes a phone call. Like, there's not enough time in the day for him to do his job and update your people. Like, what do you got? Well, no, he updates each customer one time in that. So you're letting somebody sit on ice for 36, 48, 72, 4, 5, 6 days without any interaction. One of the things that I'm proud of that is a policy in the car dealerships that I own, that I no longer run and manage. I have management for it, but a policy that I created was, if you sell a car, these dealerships sell a little bit older used cars. So there's a delay from when the customer buys, 60-point inspection, brakes, tires, parts, so on and so forth. It's usually 2 or 3 days. There is not a day to go by where you don't check with them once in the morning and check with them once in the afternoon. Hey, by the way, we got off the meeting. Production is scheduled for such and such. You should have it by such and such time. In the evening, hey, just wanted to let you know everything went well today. We're still on track for such and such, or make the adjustment where necessary. It boils down to accountability. The more time your customer has to have these epiphanies about not wanting to do this anymore, or the ether wears off, the more time they have to cancel and consider doing so. When you stay with the customer, I give what I call the fire hose analogy. You consider a long fire hose. One end's at a fire hydrant or a high pressure water source. The other end is held by a firefighter. What's going on? He's going all over the place trying to struggle and hold that thing together. That's what happens when you have one touch point with a customer during the sales process, okay? When you go sale, fire hydrant, to delivery, one fireman at the end of the hose. Now, you add in 6 more touch points, 6 more firemen in between, that hose is now under control and it has a far, far less chance of going crazy on you. So long drawn out answer for flair, but the simple answer is it's accountability and it's an exit interview, making sure, hey, you know what you've done, you understand what you're doing, you understand what's expected of you and what you're accountable for. And then I'm back with you every day, touching with you, making sure that we're still good here and solving any issues if they come up.
I love it. Because, if you had just answered with the fire hose thing, we would have been lost. So that's even better, because we'd be like, what? How did we get to that? Yes. So it needed a lengthy answer. No,
Joe, because we're used to dealing with dumpster fires. So we would have been ready for that analogy.
Right. So Hattie, you got a question?
I do. I actually wanted to piggyback on that, because obviously in the sales industry, a lot of times that's what actually does happen when people are, they're wanting to bring in new numbers. They're not staying in contact with their prior clients. And so what's kind of like a specific system or habit that you teach to be able to switch that mentality on these salespeople or these business owners on how the engagement until, the product or the service is in full effect, in order for them to understand retention is better than acquiring new business?
So I would say retention is equal to acquiring new business, or maybe slightly greater than, as you would say, because it's already money in the bank. We just got to deliver it, right? So appreciate everything that you're saying. there's a couple different ways to answer that question, but I would say fundamentally what I teach people is, number one, your day must be packed from start to finish with income producing activities. Okay. That's number one. So having a notepad with what I'm going to do each moment of the day is paramount. Now you get guys like in the car business. Well, yeah, I get an up at noon and all of a sudden that throws everything out. No. You prioritize your day with the most important, most arduous task first, and then you go on to the rest of it. Because when you return, you're returning to right where you left off. There's a cadence to what you're doing. And if you prioritize things at the top, then you're always going to be returning to the most important thing. But aside from that, it's the accountability piece of knowing that every moment of the day, you got to be doing something. Now, here's the thing. Here's the caveat. Most guys don't view follow-up and keeping a customer accountable and locked down as an income producing activity or even an income retaining activity, because what do salespeople do? They spend the commission before they even get it. That's a done deal. It's sold. It's not sold. It's not delivered. That customer has not actually acquired that, or, the tail light rule in the car business. They're not burning gas. We're not looking at red lights. So getting the salesperson to understand that the retention of that customer is equal to or greater than, just like you said, acquisition of a new customer, breaking that mindset and making them true. It's one thing to tell them. It's another thing to see the comprehension in them and that they actually understand it. And that takes analogies. You got to give them an analogy. For instance, a woman getting pregnant versus having the child, not to get crass, but one of those things is incredibly important. But until we deliver that beautiful little baby into the world, we're not naming anything, right? So we have to take care in that process. Sales is very much the same way. So simple answer, making sure that individual is engaged in a cadence of the entire, and again, there's that word again, of income producing activities. The moment they're done smoking their cigarette, they're back to the notepad. The moment they're done checking their email, they're back to the notepad. Lunch, back to the notepad. That they're not, salespeople tend to think their job is, well, I'm just a great talker, so I get to come to work, I make some phone calls, I sell, I check my email here and there. It's a great job. No. If you work and you handle your sales career the same way the guy does at the Amazon assembly and shipping line, stamp, rip, go, again, that's the executor at the high level in sales. So accountability and income producing activities all day long, but more importantly, true comprehension of the fact that retention is in fact an income producing activity.
I love it. Brian Galke, you got 5 minutes before you got to bounce. You got a question? I don't want to leave you out. You'll be like, I had one.
No, I love it. I'm just listening to what we're talking about. It's like I said earlier, it's amazing. One of the things I was going to say when you were talking earlier is, with everybody being able to back out, credit cards make it easy too, because you can go to a credit card and just say, oh, I didn't like that service, or I didn't get that service. And the person has to fight to prove you got it all. But a lot, like, I love American Express as a consumer, but it's crazy because I can go, I didn't get that. And 99% of the time you'll end up winning it with American Express. And it's sad that business owners have to fight people like that on a regular basis. Like, I've been mischarged for something. I have no problem doing that. But there are people who go out and buy services left and right and just call a credit card company and go, wasn't me. And that's it. It's crazy what we live in this day and age.
Yeah. I agree with that wholeheartedly. There's two things that I encourage business owners to do there. Number one is build in that tolerable difference, account for some of that loss up front. Obviously, that's business 101. But the other thing is something that we teach and Paid to Persuade that I hold very, very near and dear. And you'll hear other people talk about pre-framing and framing. I think everybody kind of has their own description of what it is, and so does a book on psychology. But we teach pre-framing and solving the problem before it comes. So if we know that our chargeback rate is high, that the customer can do that, we're very, very diligent about, and what we teach about having a merchant or a business protect themselves from that. And I simply mean this: the salespeople I train, when somebody says yes, they don't go, okay, great, let's get that deposit. They say yes, as in 100%. Yeah, I think I want to do it, Mr. Customer. I think I want to do it, and I want to do it definitely. Let's go, tally ho, are two very different things. Now, people speak differently. To some people, yeah, I think I want to do it, let's go means yes. To others, it means I think I want to do it. All due respect, and again, benefit request, I'm simply trying to be as efficient as possible with your time. What did you mean when you said, yes, I think I want to do it? No, I mean I want to do it. I understand what you're saying. Okay, great. So you're 100% on board with this. Galke, it was beautiful talking to you, brother. Take care. Yeah. And so you're 1,000% positive that you want to do this. Yes. Okay. because Mr. Customer, not for nothing, but sometimes customers get hesitant and, they'll swipe their card. A day or two later, they'll have some buyer's remorse and they'll create a dispute with the credit card company. And that there, sir, just raise it. I mean, number one, it's issues for me, my income, my family, my 2 little babies that you see here on my desk. And it's a heck of a time for the company. And I try to be the guy that solves problems before they start. So not for nothing, you're just 100% on this. No, yeah, 100%. Okay. And sir, if I seem like I was being a little forward in any way, I just want to make sure that you're 100%. I don't ever want you doing something that you're not 100% on. Sound good? Sounds great. Boom. You'd be amazed. And psychology tells us this, that just that conversation from a percentage standpoint and a moving the meter standpoint sends that bad boy in the other direction. So again, there's that accountability and that pre-framing. So just to your point.
Yeah. And I'd love to point out that everything he said was genuine and spoken the way he speaks. Right. And so it's not like he went, oh, there's a script I'm reading off over here. Right. This is real life that he went through and said, here, this is how it goes. Because I don't know the last time I said tally ho. But when you look at it, we could all say the same thing our own way and get through. Right. Like one of the biggest things I always do is scripting is I say the problem with scripts is that we hand it to somebody and go, read it. Now read it out loud. Read it. And nobody taught you psychology of a script. And I will say most people don't put psychology behind their scripts, right? They just put out, this is words I want people saying. And it's like, man, this is horrible. But when you look and say, I've got the psychology, which I believe is what you're teaching people, is why am I doing this? Like your point was, how do we how do we stop the cancellations? We make sure the commitment is so solid in the beginning. Okay. And again, it's not that you came up with that. It's not that I was like, ooh, I love that. Right. My thing was, I got into the car business when I started doing scripting and modifying things. Right. It was 5 years in before I heard of a guy named Tom Stuker, right? And then 4 years ago, I spoke on stage with Tom Stuker, and he's like, man, this is great. I'm like, dude, evidently most of my crap I built off of what you did 20 years ago, right? And so it's so true to the point you said, hey, look, go back. One of the things I loved what you said, which is do the heavy shit first, right? Because it's amazing how, as a salesperson, their phone got so heavy, right? When they're scrolling on social media, that shit floats out their hands. It doesn't have any pain at all. When you go pick up your phone and dial customers, are like, it's so heavy. I can only do 3 calls an hour. Yeah.
So to your point, Joe, and that couldn't have resonated better. I was talking about that in a coaching call this morning. And I said to the guys, I was like, guys, here's the thing. When you make these follow-up calls and these, what I call control phone calls to maintain control of the deal, you guys are so apprehensive to do so because your concern is, well, if I don't touch the phone, there's no problem. But if I pick up the phone and I say, how's everything going? Well, then I'm going to learn about the problems. And it's like, genius, the problem is there. Whether you called them or not, that problem is there. They're pondering it. They're actioning upon it. And you're either going to get a phone call in a day from your project manager saying they called and canceled, or you're going to pick up the phone proactively, get ahead of it, and deal with that problem now. So it's another one of these things that the more understanding and the better knowledge and true comprehension of business and the ecosystem that is sales, the more apt they are, the more prone they are to do the activities that they need to do. When people see, just like for a customer, when you can show the customer that your process or your product or your service gets them to the desired solution, and you show them the testimonials, and you show them the workflow, and you show them the guarantee. Sorry about my camera here. It follows me around. When you show them beyond a shadow of a doubt, this will be your result, and you convey that certainty, what happens? Your customer engages. Same thing with your salespeople. When you can show them and convey that knowledge to them beyond a shadow of a doubt, they know, you know what? I will make more money this Friday, and it will directly reflect in my paycheck if I simply make this control phone call. Yes, I'll do it. And that's the disconnect usually that needs to be fused together in order for salespeople to execute upon that. But the phone does get awfully heavy for those boys.
It does. Ty the car guy, you got a question? I know you took 2 pages of notes, but he's always picking the notes.
Yeah, I got 3 pages of notes here. No, I resonate with all that. I love that you wrote down accountability and income producing activities should be all day. Pack your whole day. I love do the heavy shit first. Scrolling is a lot easier than calling. So yeah, I'm right on par with that. And what I say all the time is I only deal in absolutes. I don't deal in. I'm not sure. Maybe. Probably. I deal in absolutes. That's it. So man,
100%.
I love everything. I love all that.
I appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Azerty, do you have any questions? Azerty just got promoted from the floor into finance.
Hey.
Beautiful.
Thank
Man
you.
in the box.
Appreciate it. I've been cutting in and out a lot, so I've been just like trying to piece it all together, to be honest.
Okay.
That's why I had to exit and come back.
Yes, there was two
So
of you at
some
one
of them,
point.
I mean, I took the notes I could take, and then I was like skipping around, but no questions yet. Sorry.
Well, let me ask you a question, if I could, Anthony. Now that you're in the box, what is if you walked out of the workplace today and Robin Williams from Aladdin showed up dressed as a genie, and he said, "Hey, I can solve one thing for you in the box." What have you coming into that part of the dealership? What has been a pain point or a stressor or different than the sales floor? Is there any way I can bring you value?
Oh, still there, guys?
Yep, we got you.
Yeah.
There you are. Well, I'm still in training, but from what I've seen so far, I feel like a lot of it's just kind of the background stuff. So, I mean, I almost wish there was like a book for all the quirky, weird, one-off things, because there's just so many of them. It's not really a customer-facing issue that I've run into yet, but I'm sure I'll run into that.
When you say the quirky one-off stuff, you're talking about like bank nuance and stuff like that?
Yeah, all the weird bank nuance stuff, all the weird, all the stuff that we have like going on in our what is that, our DSM or our Lightyear kind of stuff. There's just so many like DMS, excuse me. You just have to know what this is. Like, oh, well, how am I supposed to know that? It's abbreviated into nothing. And they're like, just know that it's there. It's in the background. I'm like, oh, great. And there's like 1,000 of those. I've only been training for like about a week and a half now. Okay. So I haven't really got to do much. I should be going live shortly though.
Well, the good news is, just like every other position in the car dealership, if you sell and produce, they'll take the time to teach you the other stuff. So you got plenty of time.
Sweet. I hope so. Thanks, guys.
Valid. Any more? Because we creeped over past the 2:30 mark, and I don't want to occupy all of Luke's day.
You're good. What I really liked how you brought out, because I can absolutely relate to the fact of like when you do the sale and then you might not follow up with clients because you're like, shit, I don't want to mess it up. And that's really like the fear. It's the fear. I don't want to mess up the sale. So I'm not going to engage. I'm just going to let it flow. For a fact, I've experienced that. So that requires a mental shift in order for someone to go like, which is what you're teaching. Like you need to engage in order for that to avoid. Why is it that it's such a problem for people? Or why do you think, based off of what you learned?
Great question.
Because I know for a fact that's like, I mean, company wide, a lot of, I most recently I've been in insurance, right? So it's like you close the sale, you deal, and then in most cases, most insurance agents, when I'm talking to a client, they haven't even heard from their agent and who knows how long, they don't even know their name, right? Yep. So there's a lot of disconnect with staying on top of their client because of that fear.
Yes. So your question there, I believe, was how do you get past that? How do you teach that or get over that fear? How do you get people past that? There's something that we say in Paid to Persuade that I borrowed from the CIA. Okay. And just to cite it correctly, I watched a Joe Rogan interview with a guy who was in the CIA. And the guy said, Joe, one of the things they teach us as a young gumshoe or interrogator or whatever is perspective over perception. Meaning, put your chair on the other side of the table and consider if you were in the seat being interrogated and you were guilty, how would you be behaving? Would you be intimidated by this person's presence? If you were completely innocent, how would you be behaving, etc., so on and so forth. So I borrowed that and I put it into Paid to Persuade training, just very simply the idea of perspective over perception. And here's how it applies to what you're talking about. When was the last time you spent money on something that was significant and you bought it from a salesperson?
When is the last time I spent significant money on a product?
Bought an insurance policy, a house, a car, a new anything from a salesperson?
Yeah, earlier this year when I bought the car.
Okay, so you bought the car, all right? Now, after a day or two of having it, if the salesperson called you and said, hey, Sahadi, how you doing? Appreciate your business on the Camry. Just want to check and make sure everything's doing good. Are you going to cancel your purchase?
No.
If you just bought an insurance policy and you think you spent maybe a little bit too much money on it, but the insurance agent calls you and goes, hey, man, I just wanted to thank you so much again, deeply for your business and your commitment to this company. I'm so excited to work with you for years to come. I've already got some great ideas for renewal on how to save you some money. Just wanted to check in and make sure that you didn't have any questions or there wasn't any assistance I could provide for you at all today. Are you going to cancel your insurance policy?
No.
Your customer doesn't want to cancel. Now, let me ask you a question. If you bought the insurance policy and your utility bill is due and you don't have the money for it, and your only chance in the world is to cancel the insurance policy, get the refund, and pay your utility bill, are you going to do it?
Possibly.
Of course you are.
Yeah,
and is anything the salesperson says going to change that?
No.
This is the reality of sales. We, the salesperson, put ourselves into these dark corners and these unwinnable situations. Oh, I'm going to call him. It's going to screw it up. You're not screwing anything up by following up and being kind and thanking them for their business. And if you ask them if there's a problem, if a problem manifests, it was already there, but now you're at the ready to handle it and keep that sale together. So that mindset right there is how you solve that, as far as I'm concerned.
And that would make sense too, because at the end of the day, if that were to happen and that salesperson was on top of me with like making sure, hey, you know what, not a problem, it is what it is, yada, 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 then 9 times out of 10, I'm going to go back to that same person.
1,
I'm not going to go look for another one. Yeah.
No, and I'm glad you said that, because that's the perfect punctuation mark on the end of that sentence. So thank you.
Love it. Love it. All right. People want to go to Paid to Persuade. What are they going to find?
They're going to find a brand new website that we just completely redid. They're going to find everything.
It's epic with that hand.
You like that? Thank you.
Beautiful.
So what they're going to find at that website is, when I sat down with the team and said, you know, we're going to create a website, I said, what would I need to see on a website for a sales trainer to, number one, not feel like I was in the same Russell Brunson's ClickFunnels website of every other sale guru in the world. Number two, what would just calling it like I see it. Again, some people are like candor, but
almost like authentic. Yeah.
Listen, the frequency of authenticity resonates 4 times greater than anything else. So if I want to be heard, that's all I can be. And that's just the way I roll. Now, I said, what would I need to see to feel like this was something a little bit different than what I'm used to seeing? What might strike me a little bit differently? Then I said, what would I need to know? And then I said, who would I want to hear from? And that manifested itself in, I would want something that looked like it was designed to speak to a person and not a pocketbook. I would need to see that there's B2C and B2B engagement and the ways to go through both of them. And then accountability and testimonials from both ends of the spectrum. What have you actually done? Who are the real people? Let me hear from them. And then if I want to learn more, obviously the call to action, but not 12 calls to action per fold. Simply as you peruse the website, if you decide you want to engage, that ability is there. So they're going to find how they can engage if they want to. They can actually book a call with me personally. Luckily, I'm still early enough in the game where I can take anybody's booked call that's interested in sales training for their team or for themselves. They're going to see testimonials. They're going to see case studies. And more importantly, they're going to get an understanding of the foundation of not only Paid to Persuade, but me as a person, a true, gritty, candid, unscripted understanding of me and where I've come from and why I do what I do.
Amazing. Amazing. We don't have to take our shirts off during the trainings.
I prefer you kept them on, guys.
Oh,
that's
sorry, car sales training. Yes, but no, that's perfect. Thank you so much for everything you've done. I loved what you shared with us today. Last chance, you got one thing to embark wisdom onto the people that are out there. They're entrepreneurs, they're salespeople. Basically, they got to sell something today if they want to eat. What do you want to say to them? Please?
It matters not how smooth of a talker you are. It matters not how verbose you are and how deep your vocabulary is. And it matters not how well you can put a sentence into poetics. What matters is, can you interrogate compassionately? Can you ask a customer questions and be willing to ask the questions you truly want the answer to, and continue upon the question until you get the answer that you need? And then simply take those nuggets of information that you've received and then align them in a way that brings you to a non-objectionable close. It's anybody can do it. If you're selling a product from a human to a human, it can truly be done by anybody. And that's what we believe, and that's what we take pride in P2P, is the ability to take a mall security guard and turn them into a 6-figure earner. Take somebody who's managing the front desk and the bellhop at a hotel and turn them into a 6-figure earner. Doesn't matter if you're looking for 0 to 60 or 60 to 100. What we teach gets you there, full stop.
Absolutely love it. I appreciate you so much. I'm glad we've established this relationship moving forward. It's just absolutely amazing.
Thank
so I
you,
want to
brother.
thank everybody for watching. Those of you that are listening in the future, man, come on. Paid to Persuade. Go out, check it out. And I'm going to tell everybody you should go out and sell something. So hang out for me while we end this.
Let's talk about sales, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the challenges that may be. Let's talk about sales. A little bit,